Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Torn here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this online ladder battle, I will be piloting the Beastmen, so definitely should be a fun matchup. Been having a good time with them. I'm going to be facing off against a vampire count who decided to invest very, very heavily in his air force, which is a little odd. I suppose he thought I might have some Ungor raiders or low-tier range units that he could take advantage of with those, but that is not the case. So as far as my army composition goes, I have a front line of gore herds. I think they're a very cost-effective infantry front line at only 500. Decent leadership. It's really not bad. Though they don't have a lot of armor, they are shielded and decent combat stats across the board. Behind them, I have two best gore herds. These are definitely very, very cost-effective infantry for the Beastmen. Kind of similar to Black Orcs in a way, and I feel like they fill a similar role as shock troops in that manner. So they are armored, armor-piercing, high leadership, high armor, and pretty good combat stats across the board. Behind them, I have two groups of Minotaurs with great weapons. So these guys are just freaking awesome. They're fun, extremely high weapon damage, and just strong and fun units overall. So, and their charge animation is just so fun to use. And then I have a Gorbull with a potion, who I think you have to have at least a Gorbull if you're playing Beastmen, regardless of the circumstances, just for that somersault attack they do in the beginning. And then back here, I have Malagor the Dark Omen with his fun magic and devolve and Cygor summoning and all that fun stuff. And then I also decided this game, I usually don't do this, but I got another Bray Shaman with the Lore of Wild as well. So my plan was to just summon two Cygors and just get the maximum value out of that. So we'll see how that goes. As far as his army composition goes, he has a front line of skeleton spearmen, which are definitely good at absorbing the brunt against the Minotaurs and other large units. They do have anti-large, they are shielded, and charge defense against large foes, so very, very wise on his part. Behind them, he also has several units of Graveguard. He has a Vargulf. He has a Master Necromancer, so definitely some Invocation and a Heck coming my way. He has one group of Cairn Wraiths, which I would advise against Beastmen. Just that devolve is just brutal against them. And then he has this massive air force of Vargeist and Fellbats. So very interesting army, very dynamic composition as well from him. So again, I don't think this air force is going to be good, because regardless of where these Vargeist land, they're not going to have great targets anywhere. So again, I think his initial plan was to snipe one of my generals, or maybe go after Malagor or my Bray Shaman. So I noticed that right away, and I decided to pull back my Minotaurs with great weapons, and I'm just waiting. I'm like, please land. So he decides to land, and these Minotaurs are just going to get in here and tear up these bats, as well as these Vargeist here. So it's definitely just going to be a wild battle back here. As you can see, things are getting a little crazy, but again, it's going to go really well for me. I have pretty sturdy units down there, and those Vargeist are going to have a bad time. So I think I go ahead and cast a Devolve here shortly, but one group of bats is already fully routed. The other one is crumbling, and these Vargeist are starting to take serious damage. And as you can see, the only thing of mine that's taking any damage, sorry, it's kind of hard to see here in this mess, I think is one of my Bray Shamans. But again, he didn't even take that much damage, and he's starting to realize that these Minotaurs are going to tear these Vargeist to shreds. So as far as the front line goes, I just use these gore herds to engage against the skeletal spearmen, because that's very cost effective for me, and the spearmen don't have any necessary advantages against them. And then I keep this Bestigor herd in auxiliary to see. I wanted to see what he did with all these Graveguard, or where he tried to overload, so I could plug them in. And then over here, I send this Bestigor herd to deal with these flanking Graveguard here. So that'll be a pretty good matchup for me. I think those Bestigor herds will hold their own against those Graveguard without any issue. So back here, he got pretty crushed back there, and the Bray Shaman as well as Malagor and these Minotaurs were able to just lay the serious beatdown on those guys. So I do summon two Cygors simultaneously. Initially, you start off with low winds of magic, but it's good to let it fill up to 30 while you still have that high regeneration rate, and then you summon both of them once you're at 30. You don't want to summon them right away, in my opinion. So I do get the two Cygors. The one of them I decided to just send into melee, because it's kind of a cluster, and I didn't want him throwing boulders into the back of my troops, so I decided to just send them in. So I see that he's investing heavily here with these two Graveguard units, so I send this Cygor as well as these Minotaurs over here, and they're just going to wreak some serious havoc on this Graveguard line. They're not going to have a good time. So most of his units across the front line are having a bit of trouble. I then, now that I've cleaned up the back, he did pull these Vargeist and engage them. So nice little flank here, as this gore herd is broken, and he did collapse that, but I used the auxiliary Bestigor that I was keeping back here to engage. So it's going to be a pretty decent situation for me, and now Malagor is able to cast Devolve, which actually catches the bats and catches most of the troops there. You see, that's what I'm talking about. He just threw that boulder in there and hit a few of my Minotaurs. So I definitely actually send him into melee here shortly. And I do pull Malagor as well as my Brave Shaman over here to help out with these Cairn Wraiths. I needed a little bit of support because they were getting a nice surround on my units. And I do get, I believe, a Devolve here in a moment. But he did use Van Hel's Dense Macabre, always a tricky word for me, to give them speed and melee attack. Probably not the best because the speed is kind of useless at this point. So these Cairn Wraiths are starting to take some heavy-duty damage, and they're already crumbling because there's a lot of power over here. I also had my Gorbel kind of just chasing around this Vargulf. I figured that would be a good, worthwhile investment for him. And they're just kind of taking turns knocking each other back and forth, so definitely fun. As far as the western flank goes, he did pretty well here. He chased off my units. That flank by the Vargeist was pretty strong, but I did win the central battle. These Bestigors and Minotaurs, I then pull over here to clean up these Graveguard. And these Minotaurs with great weapons, in conjunction with these Bestigors, are just going to absolutely demolish these Graveguard. So I'm very, very happy about that situation. Over here, this has kind of just become a Death Star battle. But again, Centaurs, they have really good combat stats. 430 plus strength. They cause terror, which isn't as pertinent in this matchup, but they're armor piercing. And the fact that you can summon 2 of them, I feel, is perhaps a little overpowered. I mean, those things, what do they cost? Like close to 2,000 a piece. So the amount of value you're getting just from that little winds of magic, and you can still have, some winds left over to cast Devolve. And they're just in here stomping the yard, just kind of going to town on these Graveguard. And this Gorbel, though he has been taking some laps through the air, he's really just laying the beat down on these units, and is really paying due. And these Vargulfs, or Vargeist, excuse me, every time they land, are just getting crushed by these Cygors. Although he is getting this one down. Malagor finally gets enough to cast another Devolve, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is what I end up casting. And as I predicted over here, these Minotaurs and Bestigors crushed that Graveguard unit. Those great weapons just doing tons of damage. So they'll be brought back over here. So it actually is somewhat close. He does have a healthy unit of Graveguard. He has some of these Vargeists, but again, I have this full health Cygor here, which is just laying the beat down, and units are starting to come back from route. And Malagor, as well as my Brave Shaman, are in decent shape, though he's starting to take a little bit of damage here. These guys are going to get cut up once this Gorbel gets back in here, and looks like he's picking off my retreating units, which I think is the best use, because as you can see, I just had some Gore Herds come back, and that's going to make a difference here. And I am able to get my Gorbel. I didn't notice this guy for a while. He's kind of inconspicuous back here and blended in with these Graveguards, but I send this Gorbel back here with Deadly Onslaught and Foe Seeker, and he's just going to absolutely destroy this Master Necromancer. Look at him. He's just knocking him over and laying the beat down, and I do get a Devolve, which just has a brutal impact on his units. So as you can see, they're all disintegrating now, and this Master Necromancer is indeed having a very, very bad time against this Gorbel. And after having won that flank over there, I pulled the troops over, but at this point, it's pretty much over. Those Minotaurs and Cygors are just so freaking strong. They can just annihilate Graveguard. So definitely a very intense battle. As you can see across the board, these Gore Herds, they did really well. I mean, they cleaned up shop on these skeletons. I mean, again, the skeletons are a much lower tier unit, and they're cheaper as well. So in terms of cost effectiveness, it's not the most accurate comparison. But then these Bestigors plugged in, did pretty well against the Graveguards, and of course these Minotaurs were just destroying these Vargeists. So I was actually glad I brought 2 groups of those, because those Vargeists could have potentially overwhelmed my back line and maybe hero sniped me, but the fact that I had those Minotaurs on standby as well as the Gorbel and a second Brave Shaman, I was really able to fight those off. And his Graveguard did quite well. Again, Cairn Wraiths, I would not recommend Ethereal units against Beastmen. They're very weak to that magic, the Lore of Wild. So anyways, a really good game to Raptor 6. Look forward to seeing you again on Ladder, and thank you for watching. Really appreciate it, guys, and you all have an excellent weekend. Take care.